Ignored my wife's advice and lost a little over $100,000. And believe it or not, it nearly destroyed our marriage. The truth about entrepreneurship in marriage is far more brutal than most people think.
I felt pushed out of the loop. I felt like our partnership was severed and I didn't know about it. I felt like there were major decisions made that I should have been included on that I wasn't. And then I felt like once it all hit the fan and it got really, really bad, you froze.
Hmm. I want you real quickly to drop in the comments, have you ever risked it all and almost lost everything? That hurt. We have been in real estate for many, many years. As a matter of fact, our relationship actually kind of swiftly, quickly
Moved in direction.
transitioned to me getting into real estate. A guy that didn't know anything about real estate. I remember leaving the house one day and going into the meeting for a meeting for the very first time to learn about real estate. And from that point forward, I have just had a natural attraction towards real estate for many many years, and so this conversation, I feel like I'm a little bit in the hot seat somewhat, but I feel like it's necessary and it's going to be useful and beneficial to couples who are married and doing entrepreneurial life together. So
Yeah.
before we get into like the nitty gritty, when you hear entrepreneurship as my wife, what comes to mind?
So that's always been our context.
Mm,
I immediately connect that to who you are.
mm.
I also, over the years, have come to understand that while a lot of people post hashtag boss life, and I hear women talk about wanting to be married to an entrepreneur, it's much like the same feeling I have when I hear people saying they want to marry a pastor. I'm like, if only you knew.
Oh,
It ain't the life you think it is, sis. It's not all popping bottles and first class seats. There's a lot of long days. There's a lot of worry.
mm,
There's a lot of highs and lows. There's a lot of learning on the job. And the difference with entrepreneurship versus just working a 9 to 5 is that your mistakes cost a lot more when you're an entrepreneur
they do,
because you are your own safety
they
net.
do. My first or second book uh, about the fact that my past and some mistakes that I made in my teenage years prevented me from really taking advantage of opportunities where working for someone where you would be paid or compensated your work, so your worth. So for me, I felt like I was in control of my own financial destiny. And so I just naturally had an attraction to entrepreneurship as early as even my mom talks about me even being in high school, and didn't realize it, but it's just my makeup. But after that season of making mistakes in my teenage years, I couldn't really find any organization that would pay me my worth because of my mistakes. And so, I was forced, and my context became the reason why I just had an attraction and really spent a good percentage of our marriage in business. I mean,
Right.
I've done a little bit of everything. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, let's just kind of go down the resume to paint the picture of when we say entrepreneurship, we mean entrepreneurship.
Yes, you are
Yes.
definitely a serial entrepreneur. And you mentioned the story that your mom talks about you in high school. And what I love about this is that you didn't just go and get a paper route. When I hear of the business you started as a
Yes,
teenager, you were an employment agency, your own
absolutely.
employment. Can you just tell the people
Run
what young
me
Mr.
my
Bennett
cut, run me my
came up
coins.
with as a teenager?
I
Because
was
I
a
think it frames how you approach entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So I believe I was a sophomore in high school. During the time, we all know that every kid, you go through every drive-through, you're going to
A
encounter a
teenager.
teenager that likely is on their phone or acting like they really don't want to be there. But either way, as a sophomore in high school, what I found that a lot of the students was really looking for employment, especially around the summertime, They just didn't know how to get it and figure out who was hiring, etc. Well, I would read the newspaper, and I would read it often.
The want
And the
the
wanted
employment
section,
section.
the employment
Yeah.
section of the newspaper, and it was there that I found a lot of jobs in the area of fast food was posting in these newspaper articles. And so what I would do is call the restaurant acting as if I'm an adult. So they didn't even know that they were talking to a kid, but I had, positioned myself to come off as an adult and scheduled an actual interview for one of my friends at school. And so what ends up happening is that the deal was, if you get the job, you got to pay me $10. And so that's what I did. And it got me through. A kid from the way, making it do what it do is kind of, my own, that was my version of my own lemonade stand. And so I have just always, even as I'm talking to you right now about it, light up when
Yeah.
I think about entrepreneurship because of the just the limitless possibilities. I get a chance to drive my future and take something that's a seed and produce something great. Now, let's just be honest. Real estate isn't always that.
Right. You see life through that lens of limitless possibilities. And then you married a person who's very risk adverse, who sees nothing but limits.
Emphasis added on risk
Adverse.
adverse. Emphasis added. All
I
right.
am a compliance
Hashtag Dana Bennett risk adverse. Go ahead.
I am a rule follower. I am a compliance expert. I am a risk expert. So, whereas you see life through, let's just jump out the boat, we can walk on water, let's do it. I see
Peter
it.
did it. I mean,
He,
didn't he say, "These signs shall follow them"? Or better yet, he says, "Greater works than these shall you do also."
yep,
So I'm just saying,
yeah.
entrepreneurship, walking on water in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name. He also says, he who goes and builds a house
Oh my
without
God.
first counting the cost to see if he has what it takes to finish such project. And I think
Oh
that's
my God.
apropos
Here we
for
go.
real
Here
estate.
we go. This conversation, to be candidly honest, is probably one of few conversations that I get extremely nervous about just because hearing the words that I ignored your advice and it cost our family $100,000. I need to make sure you hear those words. We lost $100,000, and it really, really uh created a tremendous impact on our relationship, on our marriage.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've learned as a business owner, that while infidelity is not my issue, I will say that entrepreneurship can be akin to that infidelity, because infidelity is all rooted in a lack of trust, a
Right.
lack of honor. And so, I want to first go on camera and say, one, my bad. I apologize, in the words of Anita Baker. All jokes aside, thank you for giving me grace to learn what was hard on the job.
Yeah.
And I know that that really, really created a sting in our relationship. Over the years, we got a lot of people that always talk about, I want to get in real estate. I want to get in real estate. As a matter of fact, before shooting this episode, I got a text from somebody saying,
Wow.
"Hey, have you ever done real estate wholesaling? Do you have any context in reference to that?" If I can do anything, I'm hoping this episode provides some balance and some understanding,
Yeah.
because one thing is true about real estate: it is a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Real estate is like a bad marriage
Marriage.
that you keep going in and out of.
Yes.
So a few years ago, we faced a very turbulent time in our marriage, where it started with a real estate deal that seemed like a golden opportunity. I remember the phone call at around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'm like, I done found the one. I believe I said in that phone call, this is the deal that's going to put us on the map. This is the deal that I believe is going to give us financial freedom. I'll never forget it. I was confident, and despite your concerns, I pushed forward, and that decision created a wedge in our relationship that, quite honestly, I still believe we're healing from today.
I remember your excitement and your enthusiasm. you had had a conversation with this individual, and then he and his wife came to our home, and I remember them sketching out stuff on a piece of paper.
Actually, I invited them on the deal to invest with us. I believe if my story is accurate.
I think you were actually doing some coaching and mentoring for him,
Mhm.
helping him with some of his
That's it.
projects.
That's it.
And so we went by their project and saw it, and they had found a way, if I remember correctly, to make it seem as if they had found a way to really help people
Mhm.
and kind of flip this quickly. They were moving at a pace that we were not moving at. They had taken some of your advice and just found a way. And what they had that we didn't have was they had this seemed to be an unlimited source of money.
Mm.
We had hard money lenders. We had built great relationships
Really
with
good
banks
relationship.
and that sort of thing. And I felt like we were doing this the right way, the right pace.
Pace.
Everything was above board. He came with this idea that basically we could be better together. And
Mm.
while I believe that there is strength in partnerships, there's nothing wrong with having partnerships, but it has to be the right partner. There's so many things you have to be aligned on. And at this point, we had been in real estate for so long. We had seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Absolutely.
We knew there were no get rich quick schemes.
Absolutely not.
We knew that there was that we hadn't really missed any opportunities
Mm.
on how to do this quicker, faster, better. So that was my first kind of red flag was, I mean, this sounds good in theory, but in practice, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work.
Mm.
The other thing that they did was they pulled on this whole Christian, we got to be careful when people start throwing out.
Especially in business, you find a lot of people use that word Christian. They throw God into the equation, but in reality, I believe the name is profitable in part because it's a language the average entrepreneur understands. Because in
Mhm,
order to be in business, there is a measure of faith and
mhm,
confidence that my goddaughter likes to use often. And I had just been doing it so long that I believe he knew the key words. He knew the
mhm.
language to use to pull the string. And this wasn't our first rodeo
No,
with partnerships. And maybe we can speak to someone who's considering a partnership. As a matter of fact, what would you say to them? Give them some advice in that regard.
I will say this. Anything in business, you need to document, you need to have contracts in place. I don't care if this is your best first cousin. You need to have things documented so that when people start getting memory lapses, because I found that money and profits causes people to have amnesia about what the agreement was, who was getting 50%, who was getting 20%, what we were going to put in reserves. People start getting memory lapses when the profits start rolling in or when disagreements arise. And
Right.
so I would say if you're going to go into a partnership, don't do anything in business based on emotion.
Mm.
Don't do anything in business based off of loyalty. You do things in business that make business sense. It's you cannot run business off of emotion.
Mm.
So I would also say before you enter into a partnership with somebody, run this by somebody else.
Mm.
You may be too excited and too eager about the project, which is what I think happened to you. You were
Absolutely.
just excited and eager about the project. We had been having slow growth, and I think you were ready to just kind of bust into what was next. And he just came at the right time, saying all the right words. But the word says we are supposed to know the spirit by the spirit. Anytime we have had hiccups in business, where we've taken an L, it has been because we have abandoned good business principles.
Mm.
If you follow good business principles that you know work, that's how you get out of a hole. Not throwing more money at it, not taking unvetted risks. Um, I see people get excited, and when you true back and look at the root cause, here's my compliance kicking in.
It is.
What was the root
Clients
cause of
talking
the
all
issue?
day.
When you go back and you do root cause analysis, somebody strayed from the program.
That's good.
Somebody strayed from the playbook. And in this instance, he was able to convince you to stray from the playbook.
One of the things that I did not realize is that, in business, especially being married, I had spent many years doing business just me. We had a dynamic where we felt like in order for entrepreneurship to work, within our family, within our infrastructure, within the enterprise that we were building as a marriage, we had to come to an understanding where one of us would be walking by faith in the business and then the other would be the steady Eddie.
Mhm.
So for us, in order for entrepreneurship to work as well as it has over the last 18 years, you know, we had to decide on the front end who would be the consistent foundation of making sure that the water flows, while in entrepreneurship the water drips.
Mhm.
And when there is a great flow or a tsunami of income, then great, we'll have a wonderful time at that point. But what I failed to recognize, you know, as I'm thinking through it, that that deal had a lot more to do with the real estate transaction and more to do with the foundation of trust that you and I had built over the years, and
Right.
how someone was able to come in and turn the volume up that really fed my ambition and my identity to the degree that I wasn't even able to hear sound wisdom.
Right.
And when we make decisions without our partners, it's crucial that we understand, especially in the context of marriage, you're putting your marriage at risk. If there's an area that destroys marriage today, it's in the area of finance and in the area of business. I know they like to say, well, he cheated, she cheated. I've seen couples make it past infidelity.
Right.
But one of the areas that's hard for a lot of couples to make it past is that
Financial
financial
ruin.
hardship,
Mhm.
especially when the financial hardship could have been avoided.
Prevent. Yeah.
So, what would you say to, let's say, a couple who is married to a guy like myself? Uh,
um, I think you said something key. They came in and they fed ambition and ego and all that, and it caused you to turn a deaf ear to wisdom. I think that was the biggest breach right there, is that I had always been kind of the voice of reason. And I think God doesn't make mistakes when he pairs people together. He pairs someone who is very risky with someone who is not so much, so that they balance each other out. I would say to a person who is married to an entrepreneur, one, you have to know that that's not going anywhere. That spirit of entrepreneurship is not going anywhere. If that person is truly an entrepreneur, they're going to always be looking for something to build. They're going to always have a creative idea that's going to surrounding how to make wealth. And that's just who they are. So you can't change that. Even if they make a mistake, they're going to get themselves back up and they're going to want to do it again. So you can't crush that and make that part of, when you keep making mistakes, you can never go into business again. Because that is literally crushing a piece of who that person is. You have to find a way to make sure that you are a partner in this thing, because it does, at the end of the day, impact you and
Mhm.
affect you.
That's good. It's good. One of the things I want the listener to hear is that every marriage is going to have some fault lines.
Mhm.
But the particular stresses that really amplify the success of any marriage is entrepreneurship. That's just the way it is. Entrepreneurship is one of those areas that have the ability to stain a marriage greatly, and even stain a person's confidence. Because I
Mhm.
remember in making that decision, how low I felt as not just a husband, but as a man and as a father, because I felt like that I put my family in a position that was hard for me to stomach.
Mhm.
And I remember the some of the moments and decisions that we went through in that, and
Mhm.
it's sometimes it's hard even thinking through it right now. It's hard to accept that there's some things, there were some clear red signs that
Mhm.
could have been avoided if I would have listened to wisdom and
Mhm.
really made a decision to heed to that wisdom. I probably would not have made such a greater impact on our
Yeah.
financial situation.
Let's talk about what actually happened.
Okay, go ahead.
So we agreed to partner with this couple on one deal that was within scope of what we had done before.
Hmm.
It was going to be kind of it was going to be a 50-50 split. Um, and that was the nature of it. what I think happened was you guys got together and we could really only move at the speed of what my income could help sustain and my risk tolerance could sustain. So, for all intents and purposes, I know this now. There was a part of you that felt like, although I was helping hold you up, I was also holding you back
Hmm.
because you were ready to run and go.
Absolutely.
And I'm over here like, oh, wait a minute now, hold up now. You know, we got these 5 kids and this mortgage and da 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 da. So someone came along that matched your hustle.
Mm.
It wasn't me. He came along and matched your hustle. And so whereas I don't know if you've ever seen runners run and they have the little parachutes on and it kind of helps
Pull them
pull
back.
them back. He came and clipped that.
Mm.
I was the parachute. He came and clipped that and you ran off. And so what was supposed to just be one deal at a time, see how it goes, became 2 deals at a time. And I was like, oh, okay. Then became a third deal.
Hmm.
And that third deal was a project that was the size of 2 deals put together.
It was.
That was the largest deal we had ever done.
Hmm.
And so now we are carrying a huge financial weight, all the while not knowing this individual is taking monies that we are pouring into these projects to help make up monies that he was losing on another project that he owed another investor. And we didn't realize this until it was far too late. I'm working a 9 to 5, which I know is some frustration for
It
you
was. It was.
because, and we can speak to this in a minute,
Okay.
but it wasn't until things were like a disaster, that I was like, oh, it didn't hit the fan and it's like all over the place. Like, this is a mess. Like, this isn't just we're 10 grand short. No, no, no. We're like tens of thousands of dollars short in projects that are not yet complete. And what is going on here?
Yeah. I just, for me, I had to learn, and even in every phase and season of entrepreneurship, every entrepreneur to a degree loathe the quick success, especially when you see others succeeding in a familiar industry. And with us being in it so long, I was just really, really ready to finally get to the point where the goal was to bring you home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's free mama so she can be able to do the things that she's passionate about, because I felt you spent many years of our marriage supporting what I was behind. Like I said, I've done a little bit of everything. The tax business, you were behind that. That was something that was totally left field.
Yeah.
And spent a season doing that. I was into what they call a jumbo loan lender, did that, so I had been in every area of real estate, among some other things in business, financial services, helping people kind of clean up their credit. I did that.
Forgot.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of everything. And so finally I had found an industry that I was like, great, this now works. All I have to do is amplify the efforts. But I did not see that breakdown of communication would be brutal to the future of what we were trying to build. And it was
Right.
not until we are, running 3 and 4 deals at one time. We got contractors and they're all different
The
parts of the
city.
city.
Yeah.
Like my daily routine is I leave the house at 7 a.m. and I may not make it back to 5 or 6 in the afternoon, just in different projects, in part because I wanted to kind of quick amplify that success. And if I could share with any entrepreneur, I have learned that there is a beauty in slow growth, in slow success. And one of the things that I wish I would have just really mastered is enjoying those little one deal closings. Like, I mean, we'd have one closing, we'd earn 15, 20, 30 grand,
Yeah.
enjoy that. But the way it was set up was it was just a machine that was moving at a pace that there was not enough fuel to keep it going. And I was able to allow someone to encourage and influence. And I'm not going to say he manipulated me or anything like that
He
because I
did.
don't.
He did.
How do you say? How do you say?
He did, because when you come into it knowing that you're going to take funds that are designated for one project to pay back an investor that you
Yeah.
dipped on another project, that was never included in the equation. Um, he lied.
Mm.
He lied. And he lied from jump. And so I think because your ambition outweighed discernment, outweighed good advice and common sense. And that's the other thing. Anything that you do, I don't care if it's business, ministry, whatever it is. This is why I tell people it's important to know you.
Mhm.
And it's important to know why you do a thing. Even a good thing done with the wrong motive, out of the wrong heart space, can be tainted.
Yeah.
And so there was still some ego and hurt and rejection and proving and things that you had going on personally that was driving some of this. I gotta get more. I gotta move faster. I gotta build this bigger and quicker. Um, I think had he met the Ken Bennett now, you would have been able to say, these numbers don't sound right.
Mhm.
You wouldn't have been in a hurry to take on multiple projects. And the reason why it was so devastating to us is because we had so much going on at one time. Had we stuck to one project at a time, we probably only would have lost 10 grand, 20
Right.
grand. But when you've got all these multiple projects going on at one time and he's siphoning money off of these projects, for the sake of, oh, we need the landscaping and oh, they
Mhm.
said it's more for the foundation. He's able to do sleight of hand because there's so much going on at one time. I think had the more healed and in touch version of you would have smelled a rat a lot sooner.
How were we able to move past it? Because it was a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
Although the motive of the other person was not correct, at the end of the day, I lost $100,000.
Yeah, man.
And
$100,000 we didn't have.
we did not have.
It wasn't like we was sitting on, you know, a bunch of money. That was money we needed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what first let's talk about the impact, because we argued over that one. And I know people hear our story and they're
Mhm.
encouraged by our marriage and they're encouraged by just, man, y'all seem to get along quite
Right,
well and y'all seem to just endure and overcome now. This is not our first financial crisis.
right.
In our 20s, we filed for
Mhm.
bankruptcy, but this even felt different.
Right,
It was a different kind of blow.
right. BK was because the bottom just dropped out of the market.
That's true. That's
We
true.
we didn't do anything wrong. We were investing in properties and flipping properties. We had multiple projects going on at that time as well.
Real estate
Real
crisis. Yeah.
estate, the real estate crisis happened, and we just happened to be holding the bag on some properties. So that was not bad business. That was not anything that we did wrong. We were in the same boat as a lot of other people who lost
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we filed bankruptcy, mostly because of our business debt.
Let's see.
This one could have been prevented, and I think that's why it hurt. This one, we were partners, and it felt like you ditched me as a partner and went with your new partner, and he has nothing to lose in this house.
Wow.
I had everything to lose. And so I'm like, how do you make these types of decisions without me when I'm the one who stands to lose?
Mm.
I'm always going to be your number one fan, your number one cheerleader, your number one investor, your number one supporter. I told you when we got married, part of my vows, even your first wedding ring, it said, where you lead, I will follow. I've always told you, because I knew you were an entrepreneur, you would always have at least one somebody believing in you.
Mm.
And that would be me. And I've tried my best to prove that over the years and that's why no matter what you come home and say we're going to do,
Right.
I'm like,
Okay.
okay, okay, it's rental cars, okay, it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
credit repair, okay, because I believe in the
Mm.
gift that's on your life. I believe you truly are gifted for business, anointed for business, and I believe that. So, even with the failures and the ups and the downs, that grace is not lifted off of your life. It doesn't, it is what it is. This one, though, I felt pushed out of the loop. I felt like our partnership was severed and I didn't know about it. I felt like there were major decisions made that I should have been included on that I wasn't. And then I felt like once it all hit the fan and it got really, really bad, you froze.
Mm.
You just it was like you were paralyzed because you're like, I don't know what decision to make. I don't know what to do next. So you just did nothing.
Mm.
And all the while, people are calling, folks putting letters on our door, like certified mail is coming. We got to make decisions. Hard money lenders are calling, contractors are calling. These people know where we live. Like it was a lot. And you weren't saying anything. And so I felt like, yo, you don't get to create this mess, then invite me in once it's a mess, and then say nothing.
That's true. That's true.
And so I remember just constantly feeling like I couldn't breathe.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you were feeling the same way. And so I kept, even in praying for you, I knew you were embarrassed. I knew you were upset. I knew you were scared. It was a place I had not seen you in
Yeah,
before.
I've always been able to, over, my years of being an entrepreneur, I've always been able to rebound and come back. If you look up Comeback King, I'm somewhere in that description. My face is there. But this was a scenario where it took everything away from me. That how was this person able to do something to me that I said would never happen to me ever again, because it
Mhm.
was not my first rodeo of being taken advantage of in real estate. If you've done any real estate any length of time, you know that there's a great chance that there's a crook out there, there's somebody that's out there that's
Especially
looking.
back in the day when it
Yeah,
was the Wild Wild West.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Misshuffling of wire transfers.
Mhm.
Oh, send it to this address. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Send it to this, and last minute changes at the title office. And so this instance felt a little bit different, genuinely, because this person knew my position as a pastor. They knew
Mhm.
my spiritual position. I spent a lot of time. So it wasn't just business. There was also
A
a
mentorship there.
mentorship and spiritual connection that I just did not see coming, and the impact that it had on things at home
Mhm.
was tough, because you had a lot of questions that I didn't have answers for.
I sure did.
You are very much a, why? Okay, but why? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have an answer. There are times, especially when you're in the fire, you don't have an answer.
Mhm.
And I just had to. I didn't have no further details. It is and I and you were so used to me having a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. I was already on G,
Mhm.
so I didn't have anything else past that. And so part of me felt frustrated. I was upset with myself. I was upset with him. I was low key upset with you. I was upset at God. Yeah, I was
Too.
upset with you.
I too.
I was upset with you because I felt like you were upset with me and mad at me for being the entrepreneur that I always been, and me making decisions and making purchases. I felt like you were not there. I mean, I don't you didn't show interest. And I know we've talked about
Mhm.
this, but part of me was like, I don't really owe you an explanation because you're not in this life. You know
And
what
you
I'm
know,
saying? Yeah.
and I did we did talk about that,
Yeah.
and you were right. I was working, but also I remember when the moment happened when I felt like I'm no longer a partner.
I remember that too.
And so once you to me, you made it clear that this was your show with your new buddy,
Mm.
then y'all got it. Let me just stay out of it.
Yeah.
And I won't talk about that moment, when that happened. But
Well, I mean, go and say it with your chest. Come on.
well, it was when we went to the title company
What
to
happened?
close on the
Okay.
property.
Okay.
You called me on the phone excited about this property and you told me all the details about it. And I was like, okay, cool. This was going to be your second deal with this person. And I was like, okay, we said we were going to wait, but it sounds like a great deal. Let's go ahead. When we get to the title company, we're closing on two properties, not one.
Mm. Two additional
Two
properties.
additional properties,
Yeah.
not one. And you didn't tell me about the second property. And when we were, excuse me, signing the paperwork, I'm looking and I'm like, this address don't make sense, but I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
Then she shows me the, what do you call it? The survey.
Hmm.
What are we doing? And there was no way I could, once it clicked, I knew I couldn't sit there and tell her I had no idea what I was signing,
Right.
because any title agent worth her salt would have pulled the deal.
Right. And let me just add some context to that, just to be sure people.
Right. It wasn't you was
You
trying
were
to
having,
hoodwink
I
me.
was not hoodwinking her. She wasn't like a guarantor on every deal. It was the
Right.
corporation, the way the corporation was set up. She
We
was one
both
of
had
the
to sign.
signing partners. So just hold up on the comment,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, no, he didn't have my good
That's
sis
me
in
all
there.
the time.
They always trying to pull a fast one.
No,
No,
so
no,
no,
no.
just
I was there signing as
the
part of the
way the
corporation.
corporation was set up, she was a required signature as well.
Right.
So
So we get in the car and I go off. I'm like, don't you ever do that to me again. What did it happen so fast? I needed to just make a decision. Da 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 da. Okay, it didn't happen so fast that you couldn't tell. You could have told
I
me when I
get
was
it.
getting dressed this morning what was going on. And so in that moment, I said, I'm not a partner in this.
Mm,
He doesn't value my opinion. It's him, and I won't say this other person's name, but it's him, and it's the K and K show now.
mm, mm.
And so I backed off. Y'all got it. Let me focus on what I do over here, which is make this check every 2 weeks, because you obviously don't need me over here. In your mind, you interpreted my checking out or pulling back as, well, she ain't involved in this, so I don't need to consult her.
Mhm.
And you did. I didn't. When you said I was on plan G, I didn't know you had already been through all those other plans, because we weren't communicating. We weren't talking about the business.
Mhm.
And so that was further contributed to the breakdown and the blow, because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So you got another investor? And okay, wait a minute. So you pulled another something out? Okay, wait a minute. So you got another draw? Like, once I finally started hearing about it, I felt like every day I was going to hear something new about how awful
Wow.
this situation was.
Wow.
And then for you, your attitude was very much like, don't come ask me no questions. And a lot of my questions was me trying to put on my compliance hat and, how do I stop the bleeding? What's the root cause? And how can we possibly fix it? It may not have come off as me trying to help. I think you already had your defenses up and felt like I was accusing you.
It did come off a bit accusatory. It did. And in that moment, I felt like, I got myself into this. I'm gonna figure my way out. You're just a all around sharp in every area, especially in education, especially in just making sure that things line up. Heck, that's what you do. So I didn't feel like having mama come and look under the bed. I mean, that's what it felt like, equivalent to, let's pull this bed up. What is going on? Why is this here? Why does chips under the bed? What is this wire? What was who is Julio? Well, so
I
I
love
mean,
that analogy. I love that analogy. Can we use this?
for sure. Go
Because
ahead.
you came to me and said, I'm getting bit up by ants. It's rats in here. It's roaches everywhere. And so I come in, okay, why are there rats? Why are there roaches? Let's see. Let's look under the bed. And then you're ashamed when I find chips and candy wrappers and soda pop bottles. And it's like, I can't help you with the rats and the
I get
roaches
it.
and the
I get it.
ants.
I get it.
I can't help you solve the problem if you. And so I'm like, why are you shame in front of me? You don't have to be shame in front of me. And I think that was a lot of the shame that you were feeling yourself. It was like you felt like you needed to hide from me.
Mm,
And I'm like, I'm the last person you need to hide from. Just tell me, show me all the stuff, all the things, so I can help you. So then that further hurt,
mm,
because I could feel the attitude. I could feel you being like, I want her help, but I don't want her help.
mm.
I want her help, but I don't want to ask her no questions. I could use a hug, but I don't want her to see me cry.
Right, right,
And
right.
it's like, I was penalized, I was brought in and then penalized for trying to get up to speed on what was going on. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have this loving, caring, like, oh, sweet peaches, what happened?
Mm.
How did we lose the
That's what I
money?
needed, though. That's what I
You know,
needed you to do. That is exactly what I needed you to do.
put your head in my bosom and
Yes, yes.
there. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean we owe these people 100? Like, what do you like? What is going on? So I was 100% black wife, you know.
Indeed.
I was 100%
Indeed. You
black,
shared your
white,
color for sure. For sure.
and so, but it never changed. The mistake didn't change how I saw you. What started to change and frustrate me was how you were handling the situation.
Mm,
Anybody can get duped. Anybody can get hoodwinked. Anybody can make bad business decisions. CEOs lose millions daily and
mm,
make bad decisions, right? You're not the first person in business to make a bad decision. But I always felt like you don't get to make a bad decision and then don't say nothing.
mm.
You don't get to make a
That's
bad
fair.
decision and then push me away.
That's fair.
That's not fair. And I just felt like you had your head buried in the sand for a long time, even so much so. I guess it brings us to our first point.
Yeah.
How do we get out of
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
We had to face it.
Yeah.
We had to sit down and face it. We got to a point where we
Couldn't avoid it.
couldn't avoid it.
You're gonna have highs and lows in business. It's gonna all not always be a cash flow that you can appreciate. And I just wish early on I would have invited her into some of the meetings and conversations. We could have plugged where there was already a loss, but I kept
Right.
the bleeding. And that's just the challenge that I have, period, is that I don't know how to cut it when I'm losing. You don't have to look like that. You do not, you didn't have to do what you're doing right now. That is
No,
totally
it's not
unnecessary.
just you. That's just an entrepreneurial trait, I think.
Mm,
We can't turn this into the whole business person versus entrepreneur. Be, but there is a difference. Some people say, well, no, not me. Chances are you are a business person.
mhm. And there's a difference.
There's a difference. If you are a business person, you know how to look at the numbers. Once the numbers stop making sense, you
You
cut it
move
and
on
move
to
on.
somewhere else.
Entrepreneurs, this is their baby.
Mhm.
This is it's like a living, breathing
Absolutely.
organism, and to have to cut it is almost like a death. I'm
Mhm.
killing something, and so it's beyond the dollars and the cents for entrepreneurs. And so it's not just you. We've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs over
Right.
the years, and one of the fatal mistakes you all make that I just don't understand, because again, I'm a risk compliance
Mhm.
person. Once it stops making sense, it stops making
Yes,
sense.
that's true.
So let's just cut it. And so that was just, you're right. It was hard for you to see this ain't working.
Mhm.
Stop
And
throwing money
and
at
I
it.
and I realized the impact of that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Losing $100,000 doesn't just affect your QuickBooks account, your bank account. It does something to you
Yeah.
emotionally. And there was something done to me emotionally that I had not felt in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
I realized during that period, I was low key depressed. Like it I was low key depressed. Let me share my
Okay,
story.
I'm sorry.
Okay, there
He
you
was low
go.
key,
I
low
was
key
low key
depressed.
depressed. Let me get my story out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so struggling
To
with
the people.
depression, something to lead in a high capacity in my church, right? This is at the same time I'm trying to nurture a growing community and lead others and build others and speak on behalf of God for his people, live a life that is integral while at the same time internally conflicted, wrestling with the emotional, psychological, relational things that I'm dealing with internally. It just was an extremely hard season and an extremely embarrassing season.
Mm-hmm.
So, very few people crap and then look back at it
Mm.
because it stinks. It
Mm-hmm.
has a smell. That's what happens in business. When you make a mistake and you're not succeeding, it's equivalent to sitting on the toilet and crapping and saying, let me look back in that and smell it. Nobody wants to do that. What you do is you get what most
Jeez.
entrepreneurs do is we get a fragrance to
Mm-hmm.
mask it, to kill the odor, to kill the smell, to keep us in the toilet room. That's kind of what I was up against. I did not want to, but the compliance officer in you is like, no, let's figure out what happened. We need
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, identify where the leakage is. And at the end of the day, we ended up losing, the property, several
Yeah.
properties. And one property in particular, well into over $500,000. And we lost everything just about.
Yeah. I had
We
to empty 401k,
401k, savings
savings
account,
account, all of that. And here's the thing, not to keep us afloat, to pay people back
what we
what
could,
we could.
yeah.
And that's the hard thing, is having to then go to your investors and say, I can only offer you pennies on the dollar because we lost it all.
Mhm.
Grateful, thankfully, most understood, some did not.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that I'm grateful that our marriage survived. I'm grateful that we were able to reconcile our book with some people. Not only after we faced it, we had to choose to forgive
Absolutely.
on repeat.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a one-time decision. It wasn't a one and done. It was something we had to choose over and over and over again. And so even when that hurt,
We can speak to this for just a second. And, real quick, listen, I want to know from you in the comments, have you ever risked it all and almost lost everything? Because I believe that what my wife and I have gone through was not just for it to be something we could talk about on this channel, but I believe that it may be resonating with someone right now that may be at the eve of it, or maybe you're on the other side of it and you're wondering, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Will I make my way out? Am I really called to be a business owner? Because that's the other thing. Rejection, failure, loss of income makes you question whether or not there's even still a seat for you at the table.
right.
And so I want to know from you, put it in the comments. If you're getting any value from any of the content, share it today. I know we just met, but let us know who you are. Give us a like, give us a share, post it, give us something in the comments, and let us know how much you are really enjoying this. If you are, we want to hear from you. We talked about facing it. Now we're into this idea of forgiving over and over and over again. I guess as Jesus says, 70 times 70. This idea of forgiveness, I think the forgiveness had to come more from your direction than mine's, because in this instance, I was the one that instigated the assault.
Just because I'm upset with you, bothered, pissed off, does not mean that I'm no longer your partner.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes people stop partnering. I said I do till death do we part. You're still breathing, I'm still breathing, we're still partners.
Yeah, that's good.
I may not like you right now, I may not understand you right now, I may not can stand you right now, but you're still my partner. And what I saw was, I'm hurting, but he's hurting too. And I could only imagine the weight that was on your
Yeah.
shoulders, knowing that you were the catalyst, or you were the conduit for this impact to our relationship and our finances. So part of me was able to sympathize.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the weight of the aftermath. You're feeling the weight of having initiated this and having been through all this stuff in your mind for months
Mhm.
before I was ever brought into it. In addition to, I still have a life. I still have a church I have to pastor. I still have a family I have to lead in the midst of all of this. So there was a piece of the forgiveness was really, one, I knew I wasn't going anywhere.
Mhm.
So if I know I'm not going anywhere, let me just, as much as I can every day, start over with a clean slate.
Wow.
Doesn't mean things didn't creep up and make
Right.
me angry with you again, because someone would knock on the door with a certified letter and I get pissed off all over again.
I guess pissed off is your word of
Yeah.
choice in this episode. Please forgive us.
Am I not? Is
I
pissed off a
don't
bad
know.
word?
Pissed off is a curse word.
Okay.
Is it Christina?
So
No, but
somebody, well, then they're gonna think I said something worse.
right. So we got to leave it in there now.
Somebody used to say, better pissed off than pissed on.
Okay. Anyway, let's
So,
get back on topic. Now we done got all off. Come on.
okay.
Come on.
So I just I kept choosing, and I kept looking at somebody was already wearing the weight of the world
Yeah,
on your shoulders. And I just did not want to continue to add
absolutely.
hurt to and beat you up while you were already beating yourself up.
Absolutely. I think the weight of insecurity, it really set in, and tried its best to rise or increase like cancer. It really did. Insecurity is very cancerous to an entrepreneur. It's demotivating. And as an entrepreneur, a respected entrepreneur, I have a lot of people that I coach people. The stuff I went through, this is stuff I told them not to do. So, it's the idea of giving advice, but not
Not
listening to
taking
your
it.
own advice. And I just want somebody to know from this episode, you can rebound. You can
Yes.
rebound.
Yes.
I want to give you the next step that I believe has worked for us as we have making our way out of this is establishing irrevocable agreement.
Yes.
I believe that is paramount
Mhm.
if you really are looking to add life to this relationship and this marriage of you all being married and you being an entrepreneur,
Right.
because you didn't say, okay, because of this mistake, entrepreneur is no go for you. You
Right.
can't do it no more, because then that also takes life from me. does
Hmm.
that, does that make sense? No one says just because you lost your job, you can't work in that industry anymore. It is no, learn from that mistake, be a little bit wiser, move a little slower. You don't have as much capital as you would desire to start with, but just know you're going to have to adjust your pace and move at the pace and the speed of the person you got to go home to
Right.
after you leave the office. And so that irrevocable agreement was, I believe, important for us. You want to share with them what that looked
Yeah.
like? Maybe some language on that.
We're not doing, we are each other's partner. We do not make major financial decisions without involving the other person.
Hmm.
I don't care if it is for business, if it's personal, if it's ministry. We are each other's partner because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, kids move out, members move on, business partners move on to the next deal. At the end of the day, when everybody else is gone, it's just you and I. And so if you're going to continue to be in business, I've got to be your number one partner and we've got to communicate about what is going on, even if that means we're slowing something down.
Mhm.
Um, that's our agreement.
Yeah. And it's worked. I believe going forward, post that crisis, that this irrevocable agreement helped spiral us into the transportation space where we
Mhm.
were able to do extremely well in that industry. And from that, we've started since then. You run your own Christian university. We've got that too. You
Mhm.
run your own school, accredited by the way, myrculife.com. Give me your fourth
Uh,
idea in this
it's
area.
keeping a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, through all of this, we had to find a way
Laugh.
after. Now we weren't laughing through. It was too many tears. But we found a way even now when we went back and we were talking about it in preparation for today's episode, there were some things that tried to come up.
Hmm.
That's why you think you said at the beginning, we're still kind of healing from it.
Absolutely.
Um, perspectives and how you were feeling in the moment, how I was feeling in the moment. And we talked through that. And then we got to the point where we were talking about, well, what point should we want to share with people? And I said, what about the time when I almost popped a cat? Dude. So most of you may not understand this dynamic of our relationship. You definitely have the gift of forgiveness.
Hmm.
You are very non-confrontational. You choose peace. I'm the one in the relationship. Talk to me because I'm gonna talk back. You got something to say. I like Kamala says she eats no for breakfast. I eat conflict for breakfast. Like I don't mind having the
You eat
conversation.
conflict for
Yeah.
breakfast?
I will wake up
Oh
and
my
choose violence.
God.
Like it don't bother me.
That is true. That is
It
true.
don't bother me. So these individuals came to our church,
Hmm.
wanting to start some static.
I forgot about that. They did.
And you were in your office and you're like, I'm not dealing with this foolishness. I don't owe these people anything. If anything, they owe us money, the nerve. And I think they were coming to try to intimidate you.
Hmm.
And we were in the office for a little while and I heard them outside the door bumping their gums. And finally, I just flung the door open and said, what do you want? He ain't coming out. What do you want? What is it? You trying to be saved? You want to meet your Lord and Savior? What we doing today? And so it turned into a,
It
a,
did.
a little situation.
It did.
And but I wasn't backing down. One thing I am fearless about is protecting my family. And it's not to say that you're not.
Right.
Um, you just choose,
I go a different way.
you go a different way.
But if I go there, I go there.
Yeah. I don't have no problem.
Lord
So,
knows.
so we laugh about that now because this man is a big guy.
Yes.
He said he had some weapons on him. I feel like this. I'm saved. My seat is secure in heaven. Anytime the Lord wants me, he can come take me. I just knew it wasn't gonna be that day. So I wasn't worried about it.
Okay.
But we laugh about that situation now. Because in hindsight, I should have just stayed in there
Absolutely, you
and
should
just let
have.
our security team handle it. But it was just too much noise talking going on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
So
I pray this has been insightful and it has provided some language. But our final point in this conversation is we made a decision to dig ourselves out together.
together.
I
Yes.
think what is important is you hear the words together.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't just sit in the mess, wallow in it, cuss each other out, see what you did. We wouldn't be here if you wouldn't have done this and that. If you would have listened to me, you would have. Well, she did say some of those things, but at the same time, she was just involved in the process of restoration with me. So it wasn't a journey that I had to embark upon myself. And that's one of the beautiful things that I love about what the Lord has gifted me in this marriage is someone who is going, she's going to speak her piece. You just heard her say she eats conflict for breakfast. I drink coffee for breakfast.
Coffee and croissants, and I'm over here
And
eating
croissants,
conflict.
and I'm cool. No, you eat conflict for breakfast. But making a decision to dig ourselves out of it together, scripture is true. One could put 1,000, two could put
Yeah.
10,000. How can two walk together lest they agree? A house divided against itself cannot stand. And what we had to make sure that what was going on out there in the streets did not divide the home that we were trying to build.
Right.
One of the things I will say is that being a family of 5 children, our children, I don't believe, was even aware of this going
Wow.
on.
That's a great point.
I don't know. I know except the grace of God we went on parenting and doing life and honoring the covenant that we have before our children because we wanted our children to be able to see that yeah, me and mom don't always agree,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to bring what's going on out there in the streets and impact the welfare and the mental health of the children that we've been called to raise and create a path for. So any final thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you brought up. I didn't even think about that. We, over the years, have done a good job, I believe, of being honest with our kids without putting the weight of grown folk stuff
Mm.
on our kids. I'm pretty sure there were moments where we were like, "Hey, things are tight right now. We can't do X, Y, and Z." I know that Christmas was pretty lean,
It was lame.
birthdays pretty lean. And we explain why, things are slow in business and we've taken some losses, but without them knowing the full impact and weight of what all we were losing. So I think that's a great point. I will say this: life is going to happen.
Mm.
Doesn't matter how in love you are, it doesn't matter how long you've been married, it doesn't matter how prayed up you are, life happens. We are not exempt from trials and tribulations in life. But I really truly believe that when you invite God into your marriage and into your situation, there was a lot of praying going on,
Mhm.
a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of
A
conversations
lot of
between you
therapy.
and I. But there was a lot of conversations here too. And I think that was one of the things that also kept us together.
Mm.
And then making a decision that, like you said, nothing is going to come from the outside and break us, not even us. It said, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, let no man tear apart. That even includes us.
Mm.
We are included in that no man. And so even though you made a mistake, even though probably didn't initially approach it correctly, even though you had a breakdown in communication and all of the things that were going on, we're losing money here and there. somehow our love for each other, I think our faith, I think our willingness to fight through this together is what made the difference. And over time, you regained your confidence
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Just do a fist bump right there. Fist bump. Um, if we're gonna remind you guys of anything, it's this. No one in marriage gets the chance to make a unilateral decision. This is so important for you to understand because it can affect the entire house. We have decided to enter into an arrangement. We say all the time, marriage is a contract filled with constant
Constant.
negotiations. So what we made a decision to do at year 17.5 or whatever year that was, I don't remember. No, it wouldn't be 17,
No,
maybe year 15.
15.
We made a decision to go back to the table, renegotiate in a way that created more clearer language that she's my number one business partner in everything that I do. All right. Listen, I love you guys. Thank you so much for streaming in today. I hope you were blessed. Pray for us
Yes.
as we're on our way up and out as we get through this season. All right. Love you guys. Praying for you. Talk soon.
Listen, guys, in our next episode, we'll dive even deeper into the relationship between money and marriage. We'll discuss practical steps you can take to strengthen your financial partnership and ensure that your love and your money stand the test of time.